Yeah, good. What do you think? Shall we start?
I think we should. So I would like to welcome all of you and thank you so much for your patience and apologize for this confusion about British time, which changed last Sunday. And not everyone knew about that. So we had to start the meeting at 6 o'clock British time instead of 5 o'clock British time. But I'm really grateful that you are back. And I'm very happy that we are now arriving at lecture 8 of this series. So I will let my colleague Hatoun introduce the series briefly, and then I will introduce our speaker. And then I will hand over to him and give his lecture. Thank you.
Okay, good evening and hello everyone. Ramadan Mubarak Kareem in advance. We are just 3 days away. This series, as most of you know, is a joint project between Professor Zahia and myself, supervising and organizing a platform through University of Manchester that could explore Muslim women's ideas of empowerment in history, literature, and arts, and by giving also the platform for all researchers who work on these ideas from a multidisciplinary, distinctive, innovative, and creative approach that would deconstruct the stereotypes of Muslim women and emphasize their diversity. This series is the format of it is through Zoom. Speakers are from the MENA and from the global Earth, and they are not specific from the region, but the subject is our region. We started last December 21, and we will go through until the end of the academic year. And we are very happy that we have reached lecture 8 with Professor Moha Ennaji today, whom I'll leave the mic to Professor Zahia to introduce.
Thank you very much. It's truly a great pleasure and honor to have Professor Moha with us. He is a leading scholar in North Africa. He is the president of the International Institute for Languages and Cultures in Fez. He has published, before I go to that, he has lectured in Arab, European, American universities and has been a visiting scholar at Rutgers, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Essex universities. He has published extensively on linguistics, gender, and migration in North Africa. His most recent publications include Muslim Moroccan Migrants in Europe, Multiculturalism and Democracy in North Africa, Minorities, Women, and the State in North Africa, The Maghreb-Europe Paradigm, Migration, Gender, and Cultural Dialogue. He has also published numerous articles on highly sensitive gender-related issues, including underage maids in Morocco, women and terrorism, and of course, today's lecture's topic, which is Muslim women preachers, or the Murshidat, in Morocco as agents of change. These are all very interesting and very original topics, and we really are looking forward to listen to you, Professor Moha. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Zahia Ismaili, and thank you for the invitation. Thank also Professor Hatoun for organizing all these meetings. I'm really thankful and grateful to you both and for helping with this with the organization of this conference. So I will first of all try to share with you my PowerPoint. Okay, I hope that can be done. Okay. Okay. So trying to find the PowerPoint. Please bear with me.
But you pressed the button of share screen, haven't you?
Okay, share screen. Yeah, I see that, but it doesn't come out right. Okay, what happened?
The green button.
Yeah, the green button, and then you have share with yeah, here. What happened? Oh my God.
You can email it to me and I can share it if that's a problem.
Okay, that would try. Well, it worked before. Okay.
Yeah, we just tried it now.
Did you see anything?
Yeah, I was saying that you just tried it now and it was working.
Yeah, it was working. I don't know. Okay, I will email it to you, Zahia, okay?
Sure.
Immediately, yeah, okay, sorry about that.
No problem, I'm waiting for it.
Okay. Sorry, not yet. Not there yet. My talk is about the Murshidat, spiritual guides in Morocco as agents of change. So in this talk, I will highlight the agency of Murshidat and of Moroccan Islamic feminists in general, focusing on their contribution to modern Islam, but also to activism for legal rights and political participation. I will discuss the positive role that Moshidat and women's organizations have been playing in the struggle for social change and for progress in women's rights. And I will argue that women's gains are irrevocable and that the future of the country is significantly linked to women's emancipation, to the women's participation, and to the fate of women's movements and their emancipation in Morocco. So yeah, if you go to slide 2 or 3, yes, the role of women's agency in the struggle against ignorance and gender inequalities is very crucial. Their efforts to consolidate knowledge production and distribution, democracy and social justice, and to challenge traditional thinking and practices of governance are so important. Yeah, I think it's the slide before this one. So this talk is based on a larger research project that I undertook among women in Morocco between 2011 and 2018. And the findings are derived also from semi-structured interviews of women and feminist leaders in Morocco, in this period. Yeah, next slide, please. So the Moshidat as a program was first launched, in 2005, following the terrorist attacks in Morocco, 2003. the government decided to initiate this program of training Murshidat women. And on the 28th of April 2006, 50 women pioneers graduated from an Islamic academy in Rabat, joining the ranks of the few women in the Arab world trained as religious guides. And they had finished a 12-month multidisciplinary program in which they studied the Quran, the Hadith, the Sharia, sociology, law, psychology, Arabic, and other topics. And this Moroccan program, which was the first of its kind, indicates a change in policy at the level of the government, at the level of the state, and the aim of which was to promote a positive image of Islam. So the Moshidat had several missions, but the main mission is to provide religious advice to women and children in mosques, schools, hospitals, prisons, and other public institutions. And this is an endeavor to reach to other women, in addition to the control of religion by the state, to rein in any extremist drift. So the female vision of Islam in order to combat extremism was used as well. And as Layla Ahmed mentioned in her book, Women and Gender in Islam, about Egyptian women, she confirms that the idea that women's Islam is usually very moderate. And she stated that Egyptian women hold a moderate and humane view of Islam, i.e. the Islam of solidarity, love, and peace and sharing. In Morocco, the government decided to reform religious affairs, especially after these terrorist attacks of 2003. And the whole structure of mosques was revisited, and also the religious textbooks were revised, and other measures were taken in a vast operation called in Arabic an Islah ad-Dini, or religious reform. And this helped the government to fight against radicalization, especially among the youth. Okay, next slide, please. So the Moshidat's mission is also, related to other domains. They have several functions, actually. For example, they have a religious mission, but also social mission, because they also act as social advisors at the same time, and they have a political edge because they have been used to fight against extremism. And they notably work with women and children, as I said, in poor ghettos, seen as fertile ground for extremist recruiters. And one of the Moshidat, Zohra Fadil, told me, quote, "We are deployed as a vanguard in the fight against any slide towards Islamic extremism." And she was very proud of her mission. And in the next slide, you see like a picture of one of the Moshidat holding a meeting with a bunch of women, and giving a lesson or sharing a conversation with them about Islamic and the religious issues. So next, please. Women's organizations are also an important factor. I make a link between Moshidat and women's organizations and women's activism, which have been going on in Morocco almost since independence. Women's movement in Morocco has been extremely strong, especially in the 1990s, where the Association Démocratique des Femmes and the UFM, Union Union de l'Action Féminine, Feminine Union, they launched a petition which got signed by 1 million people, which they sent to the King Hassan at the time, asking for reforms and women's rights. So since the 1990s, public space is no longer monopolized by men due to the intricate relationship of women's activism with the public space. And I have published jointly with Fatima Sadiki, a paper in 2006 called "The Feminization of Women of Public Space," in Morocco, thanks basically to women's organizations. And I do make a link in my analysis between women's organizations and the Murshidat. And of course, to understand the significance of Moroccan women's struggle, it is essential to relate it theoretically to Habermas's conceptualization, 1989, whereby he says that the public sphere is a modern space with a number of values that allow private people to meet in public and engage in reasoned debates and dialogues. And women have been able to use public space in Morocco and Algeria and Tunisia and other North African countries in the struggle for women's rights. And next is just a photo of Moshidat being trained at the academy that I mentioned before. And the profile of the Moshidat, as I see in the next slide, the profile of the Moshidat is specific. All of them are, of course, graduates of universities, and they have to take this exam, entrance exam, and the final exam, and they have to have at least a BA degree. Some of them have master's degrees in Islamic studies or Arabic studies from Moroccan universities, and they master very well the Arabic language, the grammar, the literature, and have a very good knowledge of the Quran and the Hadith and the Sharia or Islamic law. And of course, attitudes towards the Moshidat have varied. Islamic extremists look down upon the program, saying that, well, it's only the program of the state that has been used, to fight against us. But other religious groups actually appreciated the program, including the well-known Islamic moderate party, the Justice and Development Party. So for these moderate Islamists, the program is a good move. And for the progressive secular people and secular feminists, also they said that this is a fantastic program because it represents another step towards tolerance, equality, and modernity, and also it's a way of empowering women. And in my interviews, I asked a few questions to some of these Moshidat about their new role and duties, and one of them said to me, Samira, in her late 30s, like most of the others, claimed how, quote, proud she is to be a part of the Moshidat group, and she sees her mission as an important mission, trying to, quote, fill in the gaps that prevent a solid framework for religion. And I quote her, "We teach a tolerant Islam by focusing on the underprivileged classes." So Moshidat are in charge of leading religious discussions, as I said, in mosques, schools, hospitals, prisons, and they give lessons in Islam, also give moral support to people in difficulty, especially women, and guide the faithful towards a tolerant Islam. So again, next slide, please. The attitudes are, as I said, are varied, but of course, the majority of the Moroccan people I asked and civil society really favored this program. Next slide, please. Yes. So another graduate, Leila Faris, told me that she saw the Moshidat's role as promoting the true face of Islam in the country. And I quote her again, "We will help attenuate any drift towards Islamic extremism." She said, stressing that an overall approach is needed to deal with radical Islam. And of course, the Moshidat since then have been working, and the program is still going on. And Moshidat, as I said, are also linked to the struggle of other women, especially Islamic feminists. Next, please. So the emergence of women's NGOs, as I said before, is an answer to the crisis of the nation-state model of governance, and grassroots movements like women's movements and NGOs are treated also as a way to ensure democracy or democratization and sustainable development. And they create, in my view, a social dynamism through the mobilization and participation, in public space. And in this way, they contribute to decentralizing and feminizing governance in a more, egalitarian way, if I may say so. So Moshidat are a form also of state Islamic feminism. And this is an argument I share with Douada and Pepiseli, who also wrote an article showing that the Murshidat in Morocco exemplify also state Islamic feminism, because Islamic feminism in Morocco is not just the concern of women, it's also the concern of the state at the highest level. So Islamic feminism at the state level is also important, and it supports this kind of program of Morshidat and of women being involved in religious discourse and religious debate and religious knowledge. So to fully understand the significance of the Moroccan experience, I think it is essential to relate it to the rise of Islamism in the region and extremism, and to the role of women's organizations, but also to the role of human rights organizations, which treat women's rights as human rights. And the role of the associations I mentioned is remarkable. It has been remarkable because it highlights the efforts of women, feminists, women, secular or Islamic, to consolidate democratization and social justice and gender justice, and to challenge patriarchy and traditional thinking. Next, please. Next slide. So I think it's important to mention also these facts. So some people in previous analysis have disconnected like activism and secular feminists from other kind of activism, but I think they are all linked. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay. So I also relate the role of the Murshidat to the crucial importance of religious knowledge. And critical to the work of Moroccan women, I think, is the role of spirituality among women and religious knowledge. And according to recent surveys, religiosity is high among women in Morocco. But most of women, when they think of religiosity, they are more in spirituality, okay, in faith, in Islam as culture, not Islam as dogma or orthodoxy, okay? And this has strengthened a little bit the role of women as mediators, but also as mediators of an Islam that is more acceptable and moderate and modern, which has led to the empowerment of the Moshidat and other feminists, other Islamic feminists in the region. So religious knowledge, according to Mernisi, who wrote about this, and her book that I analyzed and published an article about, and the veil and the male elite, she criticized some male discourses and analyses of the hadith and the sunnah and other scriptures. And she mentioned that religious knowledge and religious debate is important, and it has to be also led by women, and women intellectuals should get more and more involved in religious debate and religious knowledge, and also religious distribution and religious production of knowledge. So religious knowledge, in my view, becomes the basis for social change and collective struggle in this sense, because Muslim women activists can instrumentalize it in progressive ways to challenge patriarchy and to transform society and to modernize it and to put it on the right, let's say, path of Islam, of compassion, justice, and solidarity. And Lamrabat, in her book about women and Islam in history, also highlights these arguments. Next, please. So, of course, this Moshidat program has been very influential and impactful, that it has been also copied in other countries, including Egypt and Turkey. And they have, both countries have followed the Moroccan model. But in both countries, in Egypt, Turkey, and Morocco, let's be frank, as I will mention in a while, historically, we have always had women as spiritual guides in the history, as Sufi women and others who have been very influential. In Egypt, they called Da'iya, but okay, now we call them Murshidat because they are part of the state's vision of moderate Islam. So the Moroccan experiment of the Moshidat has been so successful, in my view, that a few Muslim countries, as I mentioned, like Egypt and Turkey, have decided to follow this model. And historically, I just mentioned that women throughout the history of Islam and North Africa have been very proactive in their knowledge and knowledge production and distribution of Islamic principles. So women's Islamic feminism is deeply rooted in Moroccan history and society. And because for centuries, women in Morocco have been able to contribute in one way or another to moderate Islam, as I mentioned. And I have here a few cases of names, like the case of Fatima al-Fihriya in the 9th century, who was a devout Muslim and who decided to build a whole university, the Qarawiyyin Islamic University in Fez, which we think is the oldest university in the world. It was built by Fatima al-Fihriya. And since then until now, the Qarawiyyin University teaches Islamic studies, theology, jurisprudence, Arabic grammar and literature, and other subjects. But since then, the University of Qarawiyyin has given thousands of graduates and ulama, okay, who have been able to spread the Sunni Islam of the Maliki school, which is a moderate Islam. And also we have Zainab al-Nafzawiya in the 12th century. She was the wife of Yusuf ibn Tashfin, but she also ran Morocco for a while, for 30 years, and she helped her husband before his death. And also you have a devout saint called Lalla Mhila from Amazigh origin in the 12th century, who opened mosques and schools for girls in order to spread education and moderate Sunni Islam. And you had also in the 7th century, Khnata bint Bakkar, the wife of King Mullah Ismail, who ran the country, helped her husband, opened schools and the mosques, and helped to, to make peace between Morocco and the Western powers of the time. So today, Moroccan feminists are both impressed. Moroccan feminists, secular and Islamic, are both impressed and impacted by these historical female figureheads, knowledge and strong personalities that challenge patriarchy. And they regard them as role models whose footsteps they are determined to follow. So the next, please. So the Moshidat come as, in my view, a follow-up of this historical tradition in North Africa. And of course, one of the criticisms against the program is that despite the excellent training, etc., the program does not actually prepare women or authorize them to become imams. That means to lead the prayers. But according to many people in the Ministry of Religious Affairs in Morocco, including Ahmed Kostas, whom I talked to personally as an official in the ministry, he said it's better for women, in his view, to be able to spread and teach, you know, the Islam of love and passion and impact women and children and other people than just to simply lead the prayer. But you know, things may change in the future. You never know. And of course, according to these officials in the Ministry of Religious Affairs, you know, at any rate, you know, Morocco's you know, history shows that women preachers have never been you know, have never led prayers or been imams in the country. So this Moroccan tradition, you know, for the time being, you know, declares that women cannot lead prayers, but the Murshidat can now contribute to the enhancement of women's legal and civil rights and to their active participation in public life. So the conclusion from all this, I think the main argument, if I in my you know, research, is that the Murshidat phenomenon is to be approached as women's activism and feminized civil society, also as an example of Islamic feminism, of progressive Islamic feminism. Okay, and given their religious knowledge, women preachers like Islamic feminists and civil society activists and also secular feminists contribute to reforming the religious domain and to transforming society at large. So the Moshidat and the women activists in general contribute to the distribution of knowledge and awareness raising in society, you know, among all members of the society, including men, because women educate also men. And next, so another argument is that the public space in Morocco and other North African countries by extension is changing and the religious domain is becoming feminized. Okay, and because, especially because of women's greater social participation, greater involvement in religious public debates and opinion making, and their access to the different types of social institutions and media, including, you know, some, you know, newspapers and magazines that are specialized in the religious knowledge. So this is basically what I had to say, and I have a list of references, you know, because so much has been written about women's role in religious debate and religious knowledge, and you know, so many books have been edited, including the book that I contributed to, edited by Fatima Siddiqui, Women and Knowledge in the Mediterranean, and also the book that Zahia, you know, edited also about women in the Islamic world, in Islamic society, and so many, you know, books and articles and chapters of books have been written. But this is my analysis. I argue that the Moshidat as a program is a continuation of a historical tradition and also there is a link between all the different forms of feminism, secular and Islamic feminism, and the Moshidat also help maintain and enrich this debate between secular and Islamic feminists and activists in Morocco. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
So
much.
much.
Thank you very much, Professor Naji. This was really a very interesting experience that I think that all of us are keen, or Muslims in different countries have been looking forward actually to see how the result will be with the Murshidat innovative program that since 2005, and since we heard about it. I'm talking here about Saudi Arabia, for example. So let me, if I could just start the questions, and then I would leave it to Zahia and the rest. There are 2 points with, or 3 points actually. Now the Murshidat is a program that is launched by the state, and there has been already this debate of the state feminism as part of this program or this experience. That I don't know to what extent it is going hand in hand with, or it's approving or not contradicting with Islamic feminism, because Islamic feminism by structure deconstructs patriarchy, deconstructs authority that is represented by the state as well in a way or another, and it sometimes conflicts with ideologies that state feminism is presenting, because state feminism has is representing the state actually with all its angles, and here we can't say that it goes hand in hand with what Islamic feminism is about, which has many conflicts already with the state. I think I repeated myself. But the second question is, what is their mandate, and what authority do they have over society? They are not imams. Are they muftis? What are they learning in these 12 months that will allow them or give them the authority in society to replace the usual muftis or usual sheikhs that women go to and ask for help and support? I think I'll leave it here, and I'm sure that many people have other questions.
Yeah. Thank you. The first part, or the first question, I agree with you. Sometimes Islamic feminism may be in contradiction with the state, with the state's views and viewpoints and thinking. Yeah, for me that's not a problem. That's good for debate. That's good for enriching the conversation, for having a constructive debate. And in the case of Morocco, for the time being, Islamic feminists, because Islamic feminists are not a homogeneous group. There are so many of them, and they have different views and different ideologies and different viewpoints. But I think the main trend of the Islamic feminists in Morocco are, I think, in agreement with the state that women's involvement and emancipation is important because Islam supports women's emancipation. The king, the prophets, wives, for example, were very proactive and so on and so forth. And the current state in Morocco encourages, anyway, women's empowerment and emancipation. So Islamic feminism, in my view, and the Moshidat in particular, not only go hand in hand with the state, but they apply the policy of the state concerning Islam. And they do have an impact on the society. They are neither muftis nor imams, but they have religious knowledge, which sometimes is lacking, especially among uneducated women, children, youth. So they have an enlightening role. That means they explain the principles of Islam, the principles of enlightened Islam to people, so that they don't get everything only from the internet or from radical websites or organizations. So I think they have a fundamental role, educating, or a role mainly among the youth, the women, and that's essential because they can make an impact and they can influence people, male and female, for generations. I mean, because of the way they explain things. And also, there are a lot of issues related to women that women would not like to talk to a male imam. Okay, like gender relations within the marriage, menstruation, and Ramadan, and Islam, whatever. So there are many topics which are sort of, a bit sensitive or taboo, and a Muslim woman would not want to talk about to a male imam or mufti. So they prefer these women Moshidat with whom they can talk freely about domestic violence, about the problems raising their sons or children, within the the precepts of Islam, and so on and so forth. So they do have a very essential role so far as Islamic education is concerned, and so far as progressive modern Islamic education based on real knowledge of Islam, not based on internet or whatever. Because today on the internet, on YouTube, as you know, many people appoint themselves as muftis and religious guides and imams, while they are totally ignorant of the real Islam.
Thank you, Professor Mahia.
Thank you. Yes, I think they will have, again, much more of access to women who do not have access to internet and the technology, especially the illiterate,
Absolutely.
poor,
That's
in remote areas, etc., etc. So it's
Absolutely.
really useful and important for areas such as those.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that one. That's a great point.
Not at all. Any questions from our participants? The platform is all yours now. Comments, questions?
And raise your hands.
Please, yes. Badur, please speak. Ask a question.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for the seminar. This actually is something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. I'm from Kuwait. So there's been a culmination recently of, let's say, the past few decades of a rise of this, I would like to call it extremism, Islamic extremism in Kuwait. And in the past few months, we've been seeing a lot of fatwas coming out that are very foreign for us Kuwaitis, as we didn't grow up in this kind of environment. So I've been actually thinking about what Dr. Hatoun asked. I think the concept of Murshidat is very necessary and perhaps a first step. But my question, what I was thinking about, is what about female muftis? Can we have female muftis? I find that I've been really racking my brain about it, and I feel like having a female mufti would bring balance to the conversation. We have these males. Just 2 days ago or just yesterday, there's a new fatwa. Women in Kuwait now, when you work, you should wear the hijab, and you need to get the permission of your father or your husband. And actually, better yet, they said, just stay at home. And I find, there's no voice of a woman, and so. Can there be female muftis? Is this something that could be the next step from Murshida and Moshidat? Yeah, I don't know. It's a very big question, but it's something that I've been thinking about. So love to hear what you have to say about it.
Thank you, Badur. Over to you, Moha.
Well, as you know, Amina Wadud was one of the first Muslim women to lead a prayer in the United States, okay? And she was at the same time hailed by feminists, but also criticized by Islamic radical groups, especially from the Islamic world, Islamic majority countries. I mean, I agree with you. We need more women muftis, and I would go even further. We need more women who are like erudites in Islam. We need more scholarship, female scholarship in Islam. And Islamic scholarship should not be only the job or the mission of males. More and more Muslim women should be involved in tafsir, in going back to the scriptures and giving their own approach, their own perspective as women, as Muslim women living in the 21st century. So I think this will happen. It will take years, maybe decades, but progress will happen. It takes time, and the people have to struggle and to work hard. And the religious knowledge, is not easy to acquire. We have to study for years these scriptures and to publish. And I think about knowledge production is also very, very important. But now we are, in a way, very lucky because more women in the Muslim world, more and more access university level and graduate, and more and involved in governments, in governance, and in education, in media. More and more women are journalists. So I think all these women, through education, they can mediate and they can spread, the Islam of the middle and the Islam of solidarity and compassion and justice and gender justice and gender equality.
Thank you very much, Moha. There's a question in the chat from Ayashi. Ayashi, do you want me to ask it, or would you like to speak?
Unmute yourself.
Ayashi, you can unmute yourself? No, okay. So she says, in case women go to seek advice and guidance from Moshidat on topics of domestic violence or abuse, how will they help them? Do they have authority and connection with women associations or psychologists? I think this work is carried out by especially women's associations where they have volunteers who would give specialist advice and help in the rehab process, etc., etc. I'm not sure whether Moshidat have access to these facilities, Moha.
Well, the Moshidat also have taken courses in psychology, in conflict resolution, for example, but they can only give advice according to their knowledge, you see, but they have no authority. They can, suggest solutions, and they can also give their views as Muslim Murshidat, Muslim guides. Okay, but they cannot, of course, solve all the solutions. But at least they can enlighten these women about what Islam says. For example, about domestic violence. Is it allowed? I give you an example. I have a friend of mine who is a father of 2 daughters, and he told me a few years ago that his wife was told by a Murshidah that Islam encourages, people to send their daughters to school, and that if you send your daughters to school, you are also preparing like to go to heaven after, in the afterlife, because it's a duty. It's a duty of every Muslim parent to send their daughter to school. And this is a guy who told me he was happily surprised. And he thanked God. He sent his daughter to school. So he didn't even know, about this. So the Murshida enlightened his wife, who enlightened her husband, that sending your daughter to school is a Muslim duty. You see? So this is just an example of how this Moshidat can also guide people and influence their decisions, and also help them resolve some social and domestic problems.
Ayashi, do you have anything to add? Now you are unmuted.
I am unmuted right now. My second question was, I live in Algeria. I'm from Algeria. Do we use the term Moshidat in Algeria? Because as far as I remember, I used to attend, lectures at the masjid, and we used to refer to them as akhawat. So I'm wondering about the term. Thank you.
If I may, coming from that context, Moha, if you permit. Now, there are two things here. In Algeria, there are al-khawniyat, and these are, they have always existed, and they have always worked with the zawaya. Okay, so they are like sisters, the equivalent of sisters. Khawniyat are also called marabtat, because they are from maraboutic families. These are women who are educated in the zawaya, and they try to pass on the knowledge to women who attend on occasions such as the Mawlid, whenever there's a mawsim or an occasion in the mosque. So they go and spread knowledge about religion, about the right way. So these are Sufi women. Now, the akhawat you may be talking about here, Ayashi, are the akhawat al-Muslimat, a part of the Islamic or the Islamist revivalist groups of the 80s and 90s, yes? These are more of, I would call them conservative, fundamentalist women who were actually preaching for political parties, including the Islamic Party, the FIS, the Islamic Front, what is it, for Salvation, and other Islamist parties. These are two different categories. So which ones do you hate, the Khawniyat or the Akhawat?
You're asking Ayashi, or?
He's not very sure. Okay.
Yeah, but I think there is this difference from country to country. But as I said in my speech, all North African countries had the tradition of women saints, women Sufi scholars throughout history, and as mentioned by Zahia, through the Zawaya. Okay, we have a lot of Zawaya and a lot of saints, almost hundreds of saints. Male and female. So there must be some kind of historical connection. And also the name differs from country to country. I mentioned Da'iya in Egypt. Now we're here, Akhawat in Algeria. But in Algeria, I guess the Akhawat are like self-supportive. They are, independent, and they're not related to the state. Whereas in Morocco, the Murshidat are the special like Muslim guides trained by the state, and who are also employees of the state, and they are paid by the state, so that they can spread the Islam of the state. That's important also to remember.
Thank you, Moha. Any other questions?
There is Nayab.
I think Nayab, please speak. Unmute yourself and speak.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I just wanted to comment that in Pakistan now they've started courses for women to become muftiya, and now some of them have graduated as well, because being a muftiya is a different sort of authority that you can exercise. You can change the narrative, So that's a development in some of the big madaris. They've started this program and they train women to become mufti. Yeah, thank you.
This is great news.
Thank you. Yes, indeed.
This is wonderful news. So there is progress. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's hope. There's hope for the future.
If I may add something, yani, to this point, yani, I think that the experience of Morocco with Murshidat is great and is a great solution for the extremism that was taking place in the early millennium. But I think that again, it is not the full, or it is not the highest aim of Muslim progressive Islamists or progressive Islamic feminists who would like to make a shift in the discourse of women's position in Islam. Because the question was, what are these women studying during the 12 months? Who is teaching them, and what type of curriculum they're having? Or who are the authors of the books they are reading for? Are they reading Amna Wadud and Asma al-Mrabat? Or Amna Wadud is not allowed in Morocco itself. I mean, as a state, it doesn't accept Amna Wadud's position or what she stands for. So here again, the question is, what do we need? I hope that the second stage with these Moshidat is that we will have some women who will be more versed in Islam and Islamic debate, that they could reach to the stage where they could make a difference in or bring in something from their own experience of women in Islam. If we bring in, for example, the issue of Qiwama, what type of what answers are they giving women to Qiwama? That they have to obey their husbands and sit at home and not go to their parents and visit their parents unless the husband approves or not. Here, what does Qiwama mean? Control or share or protect, etc. So I think as a first stage, I think having Murshidat type of structure is really good, but it shouldn't be the ultimate.
I think maybe the fear, Hatoun, is the failure of state feminism in the 50s, 60s, 70s, etc., in actually controlling, in failure in allowing women to progress, and also success of the state in controlling feminist movements and women's organizations and prohibiting women from taking their own initiatives and having their own thinking in order to effectuate the change that women want, rather than being a tool that the state is using to appease Islamic fundamentalism. I think these are the dangers that we can see from this Islamic state feminism. Personally, I am not a fan of Islamic state feminism rather than Islamic feminism. I'm not a fan of state feminism because if I share with you the experience of Algeria, it's the failure of the UNFA, this state organization that represented women, that has resulted in women in Algeria being punished with a family code 22 years after being full citizens of the state. It's the absence of this state organization from debates in parliament, from legal debates about family law, that has led into that code of infamy, as I call it, which rendered women who were full citizens into second-class citizens, and they are still battling. Women in Algeria are still battling, despite these little cosmetic changes that were introduced in 2005, they are still battling with this code that really hinders women's the progress, women's freedoms, etc., etc. So this is the fears where maybe this is something we can think about together in the future. I think we need to bring the session to a close, unfortunately.
Let me just say one word.
Yes, of course, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, of course, the Murshidat is a first step, and some people say there are cosmetic changes in favor of women's empowerment and so on. And I agree, it is a limited endeavor. I mean, women Moshidat cannot solve huge issues like issue of radicalization, unemployment, poverty, you know, transform the patriarchal system in overnight. It takes ages. But this is a first step. And also Moshidat are not religious scholars. Okay, they have been, you know, educated, trained to, you know, communicate, to transmit certain ideals and principles of Islam as seen by the state. But they're not enough. They're not scholars. We need more female scholars of Islam. We need our universities to produce more research, you know, by women scholars, more PhDs, okay? And there's a lot of need for religious knowledge produced by women. And with that kind of knowledge, we can make a change and we can impact the mindsets of people in the region.
Thank you so much, Moha. Thank you.
Let me give the last word to a question by Alicia.
Yes, I hope you can hear me. I'm just in the car. So I'm just, yes, perfect. Thank you so much for hosting such a wonderful, enlightening topic. It caught my attention as I'm following Dr. Hatun, sorry. I just wanted to just make a, you know, small comment in context of the Sufi narrative on the Murshidat. And although, you know, we can go back as far as Islam and even the Ahlul Bayt traditions, where the Murshida is Fatima to Zahra, and she transferred that sort of authority, religious and otherwise, on all levels to her daughter, who is considered to be a savior, basically, to Islam. And they both had to confront Islamic patriarchy, you know, misogyny and so forth on many levels. And what I have just seen in the past 20 years, even living in Saudi Arabia, is a decentralization of the Sufi orders, where I wouldn't say across the board, but many of the male dominated orders are basically authorizing females who are apt and whatever, you know, whatever the rubric is on the spiritual plane, to give full authority to females to conduct litany, to give discourse, to guide women, and just basically handle the whole scene of spirituality rather than women all flocking to men. Because as previously mentioned in this Zoom, where women are not comfortable in going to men to speak about certain issues and matters that they feel that, you know, they're not comfortable about. So I've seen this as something becoming maybe not as popular, but it is happening, and I'm a recipient of that. So I'm a witness, and I can say that I've seen the changes, and this is also due to spiritual abuse within the spiritual circles, where men can take advantage of women. So I just want to comment on that. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Alicia. Thank you so much, Professor Ennaji Moha, a great male feminist.
Thank you.
For this illuminating lecture. It's really a great pleasure having you with us. And thank you to all participants for their contributions. And I will let my colleague Hatun announce next week's, the next lecture, not next week.
Yes, thank you all for being with us throughout this journey of 8 lectures. Our 9th lecture will be by Professor Yafa Shaneik, speaking about the art of resistance in Islam, the performance of politics among Shia women in the Middle East and beyond. Yafa Shaneik will join us on the 27th of April. That I think will be by the end of Ramadan, or I'm not sure which day of Ramadan it will be, but we will keep you posted about the detailed time, and also about we'll post you the recordings of this lecture and the previous one as well. So thank you for those who have sent us their emails, and I'll add them to our mailing list. Thank you again, Professor.
Thank you, Professor El-Fassi. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye. And Ramadan Mubarak and happy Easter, whichever you are celebrating. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.